Welcome to GeeK KetchUP. I'm Kyle Eckert alongside Chris Heck. We're two lifelong friends with a passion for all things geek. Whether it's gaming, movies, television, wrestling, comics, whatever. If it's nerdy, there's a good chance we're into it. You are listening to another wrestling recap, part of our Spotlight series. This is part 2 of our WrestleMania 36 breakdown. The Showcase of the Immortals. WrestleMania is the annual culmination of all the storylines and performances that the WWE builds throughout each year. WrestleMania 36 has been a one-of-a-kind experience because for the first time in its history, the event has been spread out over 2 nights and does not include a single fan in attendance. Night 1 saw an amazing series of matchups, including a barn burner of a ladder match for the SmackDown Tag Championships, a knockdown drag-out war between Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, and an unforgettable boneyard match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles. If you haven't had the chance, you can check out our part 1 of WrestleMania breakdown, but for the next hour or so, we are exclusively looking at Night 2, Sunday night's card, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it here, Chris. So the show kicked off on Night 2, the same as it did on Night 1, with a pre-show, and there was one pre-show matchup. It was Natalya versus Liv Morgan.
Honestly, this was probably the lowest card on the match as far as interest in the whole 9 yards, but my biggest thing was that even with being a lower interest match, they just came out and started entirely too slow. Like comparing it to what Cesaro and Drew Gulak did on Night 1's pre-show, where they just came out, went to it, kind of just overlooked the fact that there was no crowd in the stands. But I felt like Natalya just missed the memo and went with her normal game plan. And so it was like a yawn just off the bat.
It really was, and it was a late ad, and there's definitely no story built into this matchup. They were clearly both in the Elimination Chamber, but they were never in the Elimination Chamber at the same time. So really, this whole premise around the matchup was that it was a huge opportunity for Liv to go against the veteran Natalya in the WrestleMania spotlight. But you're right, they had a weird little sportsmanship handshake at the start that Natalya slapped away. And I thought that was kind of strange because it plays into a lot of the issues I have with Natalya. Is she a face or is she a heel? It's like she never knows.
I feel like she misses the memo all the time when it comes to the directives that she's given. It wasn't as vocal, it wasn't high energy. It just came down to me where I was sitting there feeling like I was watching a legitimate practice match more than anything.
Oh, yeah. And I think she flip-flopped on her good guy, bad guy shtick in the match itself. Like, she'd go from doing something kind of a little heelish to then being like, show me what you got, you got. Like, this and that toward Liv. It just never fully made sense, and it's a little unfortunate because I feel like both of them have some potential. Natty might be on the downside of her career. Liv is definitely on the upside of her career where she has a lot of years left in her. So hopefully, this is a moment she can remember that she got to wrestle on the WrestleMania pre-show and go against a veteran like Natalya. But ultimately, like you said, there's not too much to write home about. One spot that I wanted to highlight here was the springboard atomic drop that Natalya did.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was pretty cool. If got to give at least one move a highlight in this match, it would be that. But ultimately, it ended with a few back and forth roll-ups, and then eventually Liv did get the pin by pulling the legs back and getting the 1-2-3. Like we said, not a classic, but a big moment and payday for Liv.
Definitely more important for Liv Morgan. I said to my wife, Natalya does not need to win another match ever, because just given the way she has handled the character changes and her run has been over, she's very uninteresting. I don't have a problem with Natalya overall. There's always a place for a strong veteran in the locker room, but to me, I was glad to see she didn't win this match, because you never know sometimes with Natty too. That's the other thing, is she'll win in just these random spots where you think for sure it's going to be putting over the young person. And I'm glad that here she put over Liv Morgan, because she's got some talent, she's got some promise. Still a lot more needs to be seen from her. but good move coming out of Mania. And
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The Raw after Mania is on as we speak, so maybe something big will come there, or maybe a big push here in the summer. We'll just have to wait and find out. But after the pre-show was over, it was on to the main show. It kicked off once again before the show started with a little intro package from Stephanie McMahon telling us about the unique situation of COVID-19 and all of the pre-recorded matches, and then went into the same video package to open up Mania. We actually didn't talk about it in part one, but did you like that little intro package with the comedic cuts and the voiceover?
not really, and it's funny because night one, I did not actually pay it as much attention. I think I was getting my show notes ready, getting situated with some snacks, the whole 9 yards, and I just was like, get to the wrestling. Let's get to the wrestling. But I did actually catch the whole thing last night, and it was odd. I mean, I'm not a really big Pirates guy, so the whole theme this whole time, building up before all the changes and everything, was just like, meh to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're in Tampa Bay. It makes sense, Pirates, okay. But at the same time, yeah, the comedic changes, the rewinds,
The Johnny Depp voice.
yeah, faux Johnny Depp voice, I guess. Was it actually him?
No, it definitely wasn't.
Yeah,
Johnny
I
Depp.
didn't think so.
No.
But even like the outfits they were wearing, they weren't even really like super piratey. Like some of them kind of looked like Vikings and barbarians. And Kofi, I don't know what Kofi was wearing, but
Who knows? Who knows?
But at the same time, it also felt a little weird because they had Roman in there and The Miz, and I know that they were originally billed. These graphics were already created probably weeks ago, if not longer. But it just kind of the whole thing. Nah, it was too long. Didn't need it.
Too long, too awkward. And speaking about being too long and too awkward, host Gronk did open up our show in his awkward entrance into Mania. He's such a charismatic guy. It's really weird that he's so strange on WWE TV.
Yeah, he couldn't change his coat. He definitely made sure to keep the kayfabe going that he was partying all night from Saturday into Sunday because he was wearing the same clothes. I think we probably would have done a lot more with Gronk had it been a live crowd.
Yeah.
So we just got a couple spots here and there. I thought we were going to see more out of him in general, but it'd be more interesting to see what happens with Gronk moving forward yet again, just because new signing, celebrity football player, what's he going to be able to do in ring?
That's true. You never know. Maybe he spends some time down in the PC. Maybe he just does a few cameo spotlights on Raw. Time will tell. We'll find out. But let's get to the actual action. Let's get to the matches. Gronk opened it up, and the first match of the night was the NXT Women's Championship. Champion Rhea Ripley going up against Charlotte Flair. Of course, Charlotte won the Royal Rumble, and then shortly after the Royal Rumble, she was threatened by Rhea Ripley. And of course, she cemented that she was going to be coming after Rhea's championship belt at TakeOver Portland, where she attacked Ripley, challenged her for the belt at Mania. So it seemed a little strange that you're going to win the Women's Royal Rumble, but then challenge for a second-tier belt. But it's all part of the plan to elevate. It's all part of the plan to escalate. It's all part of the plan to elevate the NXT Championship into being equal with Raw and SmackDown. So got it started here, and I have to say, I was very impressed with this match.
Absolutely, I thought it was match of the night.
Really? Oh wow, match of the night opening up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really solid. There were a lot of quick grapples and holds and takedowns to start the match. Charlotte showing off a lot of strength. Rhea matching that strength a good bit. Really solid 2 count out the gate where Rhea countered Charlotte Flair, and Charlotte went for her classic she goes into the turnbuckle and does almost a handstand and then comes out of it. Rhea countered that perfectly with a little drop kick right to her face in the middle of that move and then hit the riptide. And she got a quick 2 count, and it really set the tone for, okay, you're Charlotte Flair, you're the queen, but I'm here and I am legit. You need to respect what I can do in this ring from Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, this is one of the most well-built matches coming into Mania. It was a little shocking for everybody when Charlotte said she was going to go in command for the NXT title, but I don't think that anybody truly, except for maybe a casual fan, looks at NXT anymore as an inferior brand or the second fiddle. I mean, they are pulling in great numbers. And the flip side is it's also a business decision.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Rhea Ripley has got a great future in front of her and put a lot of hype when she won the title. But NXT's been missing the mark when it comes to the ratings war with AEW. They've been very close, but it's just back, last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks of the year, the AEW just keeps edging them out.
Yeah,
So,
just by a small margin. And
right.
this feud really helped elevate NXT's status. It really did, where it gave you it's that primetime star on the NXT brand. It's instant name recognition. So we kind of said it in part one. The casual fan doesn't always dip down to NXT, but knowing Charlotte Flair is going to be on that Wednesday night, it gives you a reason to tune in and gives you a reason to stick around and watch the rest of the show.
Exactly. And, really the other reality is we've seen Finn Balor down on NXT for a long while. And if you're going to have main top tier roster guys and girls going down to NXT to mix back up with the young talent, then they're just going to have to win some titles here and there. It's just going to have to happen to make it completely interesting and that mystique of the fact that this is a place that people want to compete at. So I think all in all, it was a twofold decision, but absolutely this was match of the night for me. I thought it kicked off a big card coming in here because Saturday night raised the bar so high.
Oh, yeah.
And this one just said, hey, we didn't miss a beat. We're going straight from the Boneyard match into this. And Charlotte and Rhea both delivered on the biggest stage.
Absolutely. It was big-time physicality, which is a huge part of both of their repertoire and in-ring style. A lot of big hits. A lot of Charlotte's got the big chops and the knee strikes. Rhea hits several running drop kicks, which I just love to see a good running drop kick.
It's true.
So it was a heavy series of back and forth. And Charlotte continuing to work the knee throughout the match, which is great classic storytelling, working one body part. And then to finish it up here, she worked the knee the whole match. Charlotte goes for the figure four, and Rhea gets out of it, rolls her up. Flair kicks out of that and immediately goes back for the submission, gets her in the figure four, bridges it up to the figure eight, and surprise, surprise to me, Rhea ended up tapping out, and Charlotte Flair is now a third-time NXT Women's Champion.
Yeah, I definitely did not expect Rhea to drop it here. I thought that they were going to use this match to just put Rhea over the top and it really looked like that's what they were building to with how much Charlotte was picking her apart.
Yeah.
Right? Here comes the resilient youngin. She can overcome.
Well, and especially after her showing in Survivor Series.
Right. Ultimately, it's Charlotte Flair, and we all know that Charlotte pretty much does win everything, especially in the big spots. So as soon as I was surprised, I was like, okay, no surprise at all. But I will say, going back just to the full storytelling real quick, that the other thing I really thought excelled about this match was Charlotte's in-ring banter.
Yeah.
She has that swag of her father. She is very good at talking shit. And just the whole time, her interactions with the ref, which, hats off, I meant to call this out yesterday for part one, but hats off to the refs. Not only are they probably working harder than they ever have, but I feel like everybody's actually getting to see the refs in all their glory.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, crowd noise and everything else, you don't pick up on the fact that the refs are even doing the things that they are and talking to the competitors. So hats off to the ref crew. We appreciate you. It's nice to actually see them more involved. I don't know how you feel about that, but I got to throw that in there.
No, they definitely stepped their game up because you're right. In a crowdless environment, you're going to hear a whole lot more. And the refs are, they're always the ones keeping time and keeping pace and communicating to the wrestlers. But they definitely stepped it up and became much more interactive. We saw it in the Corbin matchup. Saw it in Sami and Daniel Bryan matchup. KO Seth Rollins. And absolutely saw it here as well. It's funny that you mentioned how much chatter Charlotte had, because I have in my notes here as well that some of the best matches of this WrestleMania weekend are where the wrestlers know how to continue to talk while they're wrestling. And I was like, Charlotte just knocked it out of the park with that one. She did a great job of keeping the conversation going and keeping the back and forth banter and being a true heel. Because that's an integral part of being a good wrestler, is being able to talk smack while you're kicking somebody's teeth in.
Right, and it was almost it was like going beyond a heel into like a villain moment. Yeah, I just think about certain like comic moments where you've got the villain stalking the hero, and as he's beating him down or whatever's happening, they are saying those things and being very creepy and
Oh yeah.
and mischievous. I that's what it made me think of. The whole match was really the definition of ruthless aggression too, because I felt
Okay.
like Charlotte just kept it on her. Just from that moment, she just kept coming back and wailing on the knee and just putting her to the limits. So
Yeah.
I said at the beginning, match of the night, it was almost a flawless wrestling match.
Yeah.
Pure wrestling match.
Pure wrestling match. Pure wrestling match. But yep, Charlotte got the win, and we'll see how her reign as NXT Women's Champion goes. Could be a ploy to get those ratings boosted at NXT on Wednesday nights, as they are going head-to-head against AEW Dynamite. We'll see how that works out. Before we move off, I do want to give a shout-out to Rhea Ripley's full Vegeta Super Saiyan gear.
I didn't even pick up on that.
Oh, yeah. And it took me about halfway through the match. I was like, okay, she's clearly dressed as something. And then I was like, she is Vegeta. So shout out to the Dragon Ball Z fans out there. Mike Fee's definitely happy to hear that one. Might even get him to Google who Rhea Ripley is, because he's not a total avid wrestling watcher. But moving on, though, as we had our next matchup, it was Aleister Black going up against Bobby Lashley with Lana, his wife, on the side. This has been a bit of an ongoing feud. It kind of developed after Bobby Lashley, Lana let go of the whole Rusev feud. It turned into Aleister Black came around. Two Raw superstars. Glad to see Aleister Black got the spooky entrance.
Yeah, he had one of the better entrances of the weekend. All I could think, though, when he came out with the giant trench coat with the horns and the hood was, man, how good would this entrance have been in a real Mania? You know, with the whole crowd, like, and maybe some other elements going on, but we'll never know. We'll have to wait till next year.
And I couldn't help but notice that they played a package in between the Rhea Charlotte match before the Aleister Black Bobby Lashley match. They showed highlights of night one, and you couldn't help but notice that the last scene of the highlight was Undertaker, and then the very first thing that you saw when they came back to the Performance Center was Aleister Black's entrance.
Ooh, are you calling a matchup?
I don't know if it's a matchup or it just could be, like passing on the mantle of the dead man's spooky supernatural guy.
That's possible. It's possible.
You never know. One way or another, they got the matchup going. It was a solid, hard-hitting matchup with a lot of suplexes. But once again, for me, I can't say that there was too much to write home about. It was a really solid matchup between two solid wrestlers. But what did you think on this one?
The word I had here was pedestrian.
There you go.
It was executed fine, and it kind of like the Liv Morgan versus Natalya thing. It was a good spot for Aleister Black to get onto the Mania card. He has definitely got a lot of potential, a lot of promise, and he's young. So I think we've got a lot of Aleister Black to see coming in the future. But I'm really not big on Bobby Lashley. The Lana Bobby Lashley angle has been overplayed.
Yeah.
I'm a Rusev guy.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
really salty about the whole damn thing anyway, so.
Ruru all day. He never got a payoff, but we're not going to harp on that tonight.
Right. So, it was good. I like that he got some AR love, Aleister Black, too, when he came in on the intro, but other than that, I thought the intro was better than the match. How about that?
That's fair. But like you said, it was a good matchup, but nothing crazy. Definitely not a match of the night. Definitely not a contender for that. But Bobby Lashley, to end up this matchup, I'll say Bobby Lashley was kind of kicking the crap out of Aleister Black. Then he lifted him up to do one more suplex. Like I said, he had dropped several suplexes. And then Lana yells for him to stop and says, no, go for the spear.
Yep.
Go for the spear. So with a wink and a smile, he puts down Aleister Black, sets up for the spear, but Black caught him with the spinning kick, knocked him out, got the pin, 1, 2, 3, and the Mania victory.
Yeah, if I was Bobby Lashley, I'd be serving Lana with some divorce papers this morning, because you can't be losing at Mania. He had him. He should have trusted his instincts, gone for the move he was going for. He would have had it in the bag, but Lana just is always causing trouble.
Yeah, always causing trouble. She caused trouble for Rusev. She caused trouble for Dolph Ziggler when she was briefly paired with him, and now she's causing trouble for Bobby Lashley.
It's true. It's true.
But if that trouble means that you leave our television screen, I think Chris and I would be okay with it.
It's damn true.
But before we move on to our next matchup of Otis versus Dolph Ziggler, we did get a quick highlight of the 24/7, 48/7 Intercontinental, European Television Championship. It was Gronk coming out of that highlight saying that he wanted to challenge for the title. He was unhappy with what happened the night before, and he was planning on challenging his good buddy Mojo Rawley for the title. So I have to stick around and see if that plays in later. I think you know that it's going to, or I wouldn't have said anything. But we'll move on here to, like I said, Otis and Dolph Ziggler. This is the culmination of one of the greatest love stories that we've seen in WWE in years. It started back in February with Otis trying to score a date with Mandy Rose, and then he finally got that date. It was all set for Valentine's Day, and then they pulled the fake out. Dolph Ziggler showed up for the date instead of Otis, and the next thing you know, Mandy and Dolph are dating, but then you all come to find out that it was Sonya Deville betraying her friend Mandy Rose and betraying Otis because she didn't see them together. So we get this payoff match, Otis versus Dolph.
It was one of the better built matches for the non-title matches, the non-gimmick matches, given the fact that, this did go back, like you said, to February as far as Otis and Ziggler, but the storyline with Mandy Rose goes back to before the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, you're right.
This is actually something that they've been building to with Otis and Mandy finally getting together for like 3-4+ months, and it's been hilarious. There's been a bunch of entertaining moments throughout the whole thing. They've built Otis into this lovable character that does the what does he call it? The centipede.
The caterpillar.
The caterpillar. Yeah, he does the caterpillar, and he's just going to turn into a huge fan favorite over all of this. But the match was good. Unfortunately, I did have to get up, so I missed the back half of this match.
Oh, dang.
So it was the one match that I did not catch the whole thing. But really, the biggest thing I wanted to talk about out of this, and sorry Otis, sorry Ziggler, but is the hacker angle.
Yeah.
They showed that in the vignette, and we started to see that hacker pop up here and there. Nobody knew what it was about. It kind of had that Y2J teaser feel from back in the 90s. But we found out during this storyline, when we found out that Sonya Deville and Dolph were working together to set all this up and go behind Mandy's back, that there was this mysterious hacker. So what do you feel about that?
The truth will be heard. That's the hacker's line. I have a theory on who it is, and it's nothing revolutionary. It's just what I've seen people kind of like hint at on the internet. Have you seen any of this at all?
Not really, no. I haven't paid too much attention.
So it's been going on for weeks. This hacker, like every now and then the SmackDown feed will twitch out, and then this especially happened in this reveal here that the truth will be heard person has been catching behind the scenes footage and secret camera footage of all the things that have been happening behind the scenes in WWE. But when you look at the circle of lights that appears when the hacker does his thing, it matches the circle lights that are on Mustafa Ali's gloves.
Ah, okay. Oh, yeah, now that you say that, that is true. And he has been gone for injury for a little while.
Yeah,
so
he's been gone. I feel like he's come back since then, but for some reason in my head, it feels like he's been gone since Kofi Mania.
I think he came back, got hurt again.
Something like that. I think you're right. I think he got hurt and then came back. That could be true.
That's a good prediction.
Came back and got hurt again. But we'll see. But back to the matchup itself. Like Chris said, he missed the back half of it, but I will say it was very similar to the Aleister Black Bobby Lashley matchup. It was really good. It was a solid matchup. But honestly, nothing stood out. And part of me was surprised that this wasn't a pre-show matchup.
I actually expected it to be, and then we only got the one on each.
Yeah, this screamed pre-show. Given what we've come to understand about how WWE builds stories and then demotes them to the pre-show, I really expected this one to be a pre-show matchup. But it ended up going on the full card. The ending came as Sonya Deville jumped up to distract Charles Robinson, the ref, to help out Dolph Ziggler to get the win. Ziggler hits the low blow, but then as he was going for that pin, Mandy Rose's music hits. She comes down. Sonya tries to stop her. She slaps Sonya Deville across the face.
Oh.
Then the ref is all distracted by the chaos outside the ring. Mandy walks around. Dolph confronts her. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? She gives Dolph the low blow. Then Otis recovers, dropped him, then hits him with the caterpillar. 1, 2, 3. Got the win. And then the real win here is he got that kiss. He sealed the deal with the kiss from Mandy Rose.
Yeah, he pretty much came back right at that moment where he's got her, he gets his kiss. Everybody everywhere is cheering for Otis
Oh,
in
man,
that moment.
so happy. And he got a real kiss in, I'll say that. He didn't get some fake peck or some fake double peck. He went for the full-on, like, real movie time kiss. I'm not sure Mandy Rose was having it, but Otis was going to get his time in the spotlight.
It's true.
Enough with these small builds. It's time to get to the nitty-gritty, the big-time matchups, the one that we were all really looking to see. Edge going up against Randy Orton in a last man standing match. These two are, of course, Raw superstars, and we all know that Edge made his massive comeback in the Royal Rumble. Then the very next night, he comes out on Raw. He's given a little speech about his battle back. Randy Orton comes out to confront him, talking about a possible rated RKO reunion, and then twisted turn of the knife, hits him with an RKO, pins his head against 2 chairs, smashes Edge's head in with some chairs. Crazy injury. Everyone's shocked. Sends Edge out for weeks. And then the storyline really progressed with a lot of Randy Orton-sided promos. We saw Beth Phoenix come out. He hit Beth Phoenix with an RKO at one point. It was a really well-built story where Randy said he was trying to save Edge from making a life-ending mistake and getting back in the ring. He didn't want to see Edge get hurt. He didn't want to see his friend that he cared so deeply about end up in a wheelchair. Edge was determined that it doesn't matter what you say, what you've done to my family, I'm getting back in the ring and I'm challenging you. And you know what? They threw down in a 42-minute last-minute standing match.
Yeah, this was amazing. It was absolutely the most exciting match to me on the card. Not only did it have a great build since Edge returned at the Royal Rumble and just absolutely blew everybody's minds.
Oh, yeah.
But it's got 9 years of build to it. Every wrestling fan that has been watching since the early 2000s, the Attitude Era, all through the end of Edge's first run of his career, everybody knew that this was coming. Everybody was excited about it. So I was super pumped. I think that Edge, I'll say it, is one of the greatest of all time. He's a top 5 wrestler for me. 11-time world champ. More titles than any other WWE wrestler. He's held more titles than anybody else in the history of the WWE.
Wow.
So if anybody overlooks him, shame on you. But I was absolutely ecstatic to get into this. And I knew that they were going to just go to the next level. I expected this to be a hard-hitting, pretty dark match. Before we kind of get into what happened in the match, I will say, and I know that all the WWE wrestlers had to deal with this year, but I was extra sad for Edge not getting his Mania return pop.
Oh, sure.
You know, like he got a huge pop at Royal Rumble, but a Royal Rumble crowd is nothing compared to a Mania crowd. And I really did just feel bad for him after everything that went down, that he was robbed of that.
It is a bit of a bummer, but I'll say it's a bummer that he didn't have a crowd there to push him on. But if any match fully utilized a crowdless environment, this one did an excellent job of that.
For sure. It was like going on a backstage tour of the Performance Center. You know, it was pretty cool just seeing all the different rooms, all the different props. And they utilized everything. Everywhere they went, they used the items in the surroundings very well. Thinking about the gym early on. And then the boardroom when Edge climbed up on the ceiling.
On the ceiling, did the Spider-Man drop?
Yeah, he did a Spider-Man elbow drop onto Randy, who was on like a boardroom table. So there was only like 3-4 feet between them?
It's maybe 3-4 feet. It wasn't much.
But really, the MVP was the cameraman on that one, because the cameraman got down perfect.
Yeah.
Looking up at Edge, so it just, you saw every bit of it.
Oh, it made him look like Tom Holland. You couldn't tell me that Edge is not going to star in Spider-Man 3 now.
I'd be all for it. The man can act. So, and it also kind of I got ahead of myself a little bit, but It just started
Yeah,
out
I was going to
hard
take us
hitting.
back to the beginning here because it started with a bang where Edge gets his big entrance. He comes out
I
into
got
the
too
ring.
excited.
Two pumps. Well, it's a big time matchup. But Edge gets his entrance. He's standing in the ring. Then Randy Orton's music hits. All eyes on the entrance ramp. You think that's where he's coming from. There's an awkward pause. He's not coming out. Tom Phillips is giving us we're going to make him wait. He's going to start playing the mind games early. But little did we know that Randy Orton was dressed up as a cameraman behind the ring. He puts down the camera. He sneaks in the ring. Boom. RKO out of nowhere to kick off the matchup. Really set the tone because it was, like you said, knockdown, drag out after this.
Yeah, the first two moves of this match were RKOs.
It's true. Yeah, boom, hit him with an instant RKO. Then got him with a second one. They roll outside and then up over the barricade. And as Chris said, it was on to use every single piece of the Performance Center. The first place they hit was the weight room. We saw a lot of really cool spots there in the weight room. Just out the gate, Randy tied Edge up on I would say they looked at like lifting belts that were dangling from the ceiling. He kind of like tied him up and had him dangling there and was punching him. Randy got paid back a little bit when Edge slugged him in the face, sat him down in an office chair, and then he did a little swing. He pulled himself up on some ledges and did just kind of a push forward.
It was the chin-up bar.
The chin-up bar, thank you.
He used the chin-up bar and pulled up and kind of swung and gave him like a little drop kick type move.
It was pretty cool. And then, obviously, Randy gets him back. And this part made me literally go out loud like, holy crap, that had to have sucked. So Randy gets his payback on Edge. He knocks him down. Then he goes to pick up a 45-pound weight from like a bench press bar. And he's carrying it over, and you're thinking, what's he going to do with this? Well, Edge comes out of nowhere and does another swinging drop kick and kicks Randy square in the chest while he's holding this 45-pound weight. Randy proceeds to trip over a ton of gym equipment and fall down.
Into a squat rack.
And then you're thinking, like, how in the world did he not just kill himself?
Right.
Like, either from anyone that's ever been to a gym or worked out in a gym or looked at a gym, even if it's a home gym, you do not want to fall on weightlifting equipment.
No. Lots of jagged edges, lots of hard iron that can just bust your head open. It was a slobber knocker from the get-go. I did see a number of people were talking about this match. I got a couple of texts from some of our other friends that thought that at times it was a little too much, but to me, it was an Edge match.
Yeah.
Edge has always been a master of storytelling. He came from the Attitude Era. He's one of the most hardcore guys we've ever seen. Made TLC matches famous. So seeing this right off the bat, it made me feel like I was back in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
It was almost like Edge did not miss a beat. And Randy Orton's a guy that was perfect for this because Randy can do pretty much anything, and he's a great storyteller as well. But it just was intense. Kept you on the edge of your seat because, Edge's neck injury and health
You just never know.
is always a concern. You'll just never know.
Yeah.
And they took some really brutal spots towards the end of the match. After they had worked their way through the entire Performance Center, they ended up in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And in there, there's ladders, there's stacked equipment, but I'm thinking about when they climb up on the it looked like a black Stone Cold Ford F-150, or something like that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And Orton gives them the vintage Orton DDT from the top of the cab onto the bed.
Yeah.
Man, did Edge just break his neck again,
That draping DDT was rough. And the head slams throughout the entire match, like Chris said, they made their way through the Performance Center, through hallways, through backstage areas. They looked like they found their way to the red light entrance ramp, into the war room, the NXT war room with the steel table. Everybody's heads getting smashed along the way. They found their way into this warehouse. They got up on the F-150. The draping DDT was crazy. Then they made their way on top of some boxes and found their way on top of what looked like the back of a semi-truck.
It was an 18-wheeler cargo trailer.
It's what Becky Lynch drove in on. But they made their way up there, and that's when things started to get really intense, because that proceeded with a lot of really hard drops and a lot of really hard hits.
Yeah, you had a giant spear from Edge onto Orton. You had an RKO happen up there, a couple of chair shots, and then ultimately we saw what ended the match here. I'll let you share it.
Yeah, so what ended up happening at the end of the match, as Chris said, Orton climbs down to get some chairs because he wanted to recreate the original chair shot that he dropped on Edge at that first Raw.
Right, and you remind me, okay, so did you notice when he goes to get the chairs that they have the largest ladder in the history of ladders?
I did notice
where
that.
He walked under
I
it?
thought he was going to climb up it. I was like, oh my God. You know, Edge is so synonymous with TLC matches and ladder matches. I was like, are they going to do some insane spot where Randy jumps off this 50-foot ladder that
It
clearly
looked like
goes...
a 50-foot ladder.
Yeah, why? I mean, I get why you need it because it's an industrial warehouse and the fans are probably super high. But why is that ladder there?
Yeah. Well, and before that, just speaking of ladders, before they ended up on the trailer, there was a moment where Edge had Orton on a table in the warehouse, and there was just this ladder sitting up against the back. And as soon as you saw it, like they actually had a quick moment on the camera where they were looking at Edge, and you see that he sees it, and it's like one of those light bulb, like oh, this is just perfect fate. Edge and ladders, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, you know. And so of course he had to climb it and like jump off, and he gives the elbow drop, but it just kind of cracked me up how many ladders ended up not really being used per se
Just in
in
the
this
background.
match, but it
Background.
was just there to represent, you know, Edge's past.
There was a few places like that where we just saw stacks of ring steps. And I was like, oh, this is what WWE does with all their spare ring steps and kendo sticks.
Yep.
But we did make our way to the top of that semi-trailer. Orton got the chairs, brings them up to recreate the beginning of the feud. But Edge jumps up and locks in the choke. Eventually gets Orton to drop down. The ref goes to get the count. He goes to start the 10 count. And Edge stops him and says, no, don't. And then Edge recreates the original chair shot. Fuel fury towards his former friend. Hits him with it. Gets the 10 count. And then pure Edge, pure storyteller, all the psychology in the world. He starts to show that emotion towards Randy. He realizes what he's done, what he's gone through. And I got to ask, do you see this as the beginning of Rated RKO?
It's possible. I could see us getting a Rated RKO run a little bit later, maybe towards the end of Edge's return. I think moving forward from here, that was such a definitive end to the match. I actually said to Sarah Beth that I was wondering if Orton was going to take a break for a little while following this match, just because a lot of times when those types of moments happen, the superstar will go be off camera for a few weeks, whatever it may be, and then come back. So I'm thinking Edge is going to move forward. I'm expecting Edge to get a title fight at some point as well. So, you know, maybe Edge versus the current WWE champion could happen moving forward. We'll just have to see.
It'd be interesting to see him maybe go up against Braun Strowman. I mean, he's got 3 hosses coming his way, whether it's Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, or Drew McIntyre. Like, that'd be a tall order for Edge. But he's a Hall of Famer, and if one thing we've learned from WWE, Hall of Famers instantly get like a boost when they come into the ring.
Well, and if anybody deserves it, it's him. Because if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, John Cena would still have a ton of championships, but I think we'd be talking about Edge as right in there at that 15, 16, tied for most ever, just because of the trajectory he was on. We'll never know because the 9 years, it happened, and you know, you got to deal with medical stuff in a serious manner, and that's what he did. He put his life first. Definitely the right decision. But now, I think moving forward, we're going to see him get some title fights. I think gold going around that waist, whether it's a Universal title or another WWE championship, and I'm all for it. I'm here for it.
Why not? I mean, I've got no beef with that. I'm cool. Edge is the man, and he deserves it. But we'll see what happens with that one. Next up was the Raw Tag Team titles, but before we got there, the 24/7 crew was back, and Mojo Rawley comes running into the ring. He's followed up by the 24/7 mob. They fight below, and sure enough, Gronk takes his opportunity. He jumps off of his giant ledge, down onto the mob, doing basically a coffin drop. He learned it from Darby Allin.
My first thought, just given the Gronk personality, was we call it the stage dive. You know?
Oh, the stage dive. I like that. I like that. But for a guy with no training who probably doesn't know how to fall from big heights onto people, it's the safest way to get that done.
Yeah.
You know, there was probably 15 people under him to take the blow. Mojo Rawley being one of them.
Oh, and it was probably a good 10, 15-foot drop.
Oh, yeah, it was big. Is big. I mean, you got to give him some credit for just jumping off it in general.
Yeah, he's a crazy dude.
Landed on the crew, landed on Mojo, got the pin. 1, 2, 3. We have a new 24/7, 48/7. You know the rest champion, and it is Rob Gronkowski. So we'll see where that goes. It also did leave us.
He's legitimizing it, Kyle.
He's legitimizing it. You're right. Because of Riddick Moss. Never mind. I'm not even going to get into that. Just give it back to R-Truth. R-Truth can have that belt forever. And he can do whatever he wants with it. I'm fine.
I agree.
But let's get to the Raw Tag Team title matchup. It was Angel Garza and Austin Theory with Selena Vega right there at their side, going up against the Street Profits, Montez Ford, and Angelo Dawkins. Solid tag match here, Chris.
Yeah, the Street Profits continue to impress me. I know when they first came on the scene and they were only cutting promos and they were pretty much just partying and talking about what else was going on during the shows, it seemed a little odd and gimmicky at first, but those guys have proven that they can do it on the mic, they can do it in the ring. They are high flyers, but they also have that good combination because, Montez has got a little more speed and high fly, and Angelo's got that power.
Yeah.
So I'm all about the Street Profits right now. I think they're easily the most entertaining / interesting tag team that WWE's got right now. And it just was a little bit of a shame because even though this was a good match, it was a high-energy match, had some decently big spots like Garza's moonsault to the outside. It's just a shame because Austin Theory and Angel Garza were kind of thrown together last minute, and they're good performers, but there's just nothing really to latch onto there.
Right.
So you kind of knew the Street Profits were going to hold the titles, but I was happy for them to get that big Mania moment.
Absolutely. And we won't dilly-dally around it. The Street Profits did end up getting the win. After a lot of big moments, we had a rope dive by Montez Ford. We had a big backflip by Garza. We had a second rope moonsault. That was pretty sweet. But in the end, after a bit of a scramble, it was Angelo Dawkins and Theory in the ring. Theory lands his F5-ish looking suplex, goes for the pin. Montez Ford breaks it up with a massive frog splash.
Oh my God.
That dude knows how to drop a frog splash.
Right? Because he's really tall and lanky,
yeah.
But he is so athletic. It literally looked like he hit the stratosphere and came back down with that frog splash.
For sure. So he hits the frog splash, and then Dawkins rolls over on Austin Theory to get the pin. They retain. Huge moment, not just for them, but all four of those competitors were making their WrestleMania debut. So a big moment for all four of them. Young guys, we hope to see a lot of them in the future. But we sped through the match because there was some after-match antics that I know that you want to talk about. Because
Absolutely.
After the match ended, Garza and Theory jumped up and got the jump on the Street Profits, beat him down. They got him. They were holding up Montez Ford in the ring so Zelina Vega could get her shot in. She gets her shot in, but then someone comes running in for the save, and it's no other than Bianca Belair.
My girl, Bianca Belair. Well, really, Montez Ford's girl, Bianca Belair.
Really, Montez Ford's wife, yeah. But that's part of it, though, for me, is I wasn't sure if commentary was going to hint us that Montez Ford and Bianca Belair are married in real life, or if she was now kind of the third party in the Street Profits, or if she was just running out to help.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she does get more of a role with them as a team, because up until that point, unless they did something in NXT that I am not aware of, I don't think that they ever really interacted as far as a group. Whereas Alexa Bliss started as Blake and Murphy's manager and then turned into her career, we didn't really see that same progression with Bianca and the Street Profits. But they could be a little powerful team. Maybe Bianca keeps bouncing back and forth between NXT. It looks like she may be next in line to face Charlotte Flair for the NXT Championship coming up. So there's a lot going on for that family.
That would be cool. And good for her. She's been crushing it down in NXT. We've talked about it before. She's got unlimited potential. Her performance center combines have been ridiculous. She's a super athlete, track star from Tennessee before she became a wrestler. So praise her up and down. We hope to see some good stuff out of her and the Street Profits. I would bet that this whole feud continues. Maybe we get a 3v3.
There you go.
Blow off in SummerSlam.
Yeah, there you go. Get Zelina Vega up. Zelina Vega's turning into quite the manager. Does someone have to be a manager with enough clout to just form your own tag team and then get into a Mania match for the belts, pretty quickly. That shows she's got some power in WWE right now.
It's true. They believe in her. And why not? She's entertaining. And her ring gear is awesome. But we'll move on here to the SmackDown Women's Championship. This was, of course, a 5-way elimination match between Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans, Tamina, Naomi, and the champion Bayley. The big story headed into this one was, of course, Sasha and Bayley and how these best friends would interact in the matchup when it came down to all bets are off. Everybody wants the belt. Are these two going to remain friends throughout the match? And I have to say, for the most part, they did.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it because this match kind of worked out like a tornado tag team plus Tamina.
Yeah.
So you had lots of really, really good tag team moves and work between Bayley and Sasha. You also saw some good stuff from Naomi and Lacey Evans working together.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of funny because it just made me sad that we never got a longer run between Sasha and Bayley as women's tag team champs when the belts came around, because they just do work so well together. But all in all, I actually went back and forth on whether or not I thought this was match of the night, just because they did do so much here. And you had a lot of really good of the banter we keep talking about out of Bayley and some of the others. Like, there was a moment where Bayley threw Naomi into the corner, and she comes stomping over, and she says, "Get back here, you little dance machine!"
I did catch that. I like that.
Just stuff like that. So I went back and forth. I ultimately gave it to Charlotte and them, but I really thought that this was one of the better matches of the entire weekend.
No, I agree. And another shout out to Bayley's chatter, as I call it. They got a quick pin, and she got rolled out of the ring. And right on cue, the commentary was like, Sasha and Bayley almost getting eliminated. And Bayley must have heard the commentary team, and she goes, "No, we didn't."
Yeah, well, you could hear him because in that same match, there was a replay. And I was actually rewatching Mania from last night earlier today, and I noticed this. But there's a replay they show, and Michael Cole is yelling so loud that you can hear him not on the mic that he has, but on the camera mic.
Yeah,
coming through, and he's given the same call, but it was just back to back. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Nah, that was too funny. That's what we get with crowdless shows. But to get into the action, out the gate, the group teamed up on Tamina, knocked her out, and then, like Chris said, there was a bit of a tornado tag situation with Lacey and Naomi going up against Sasha and Bayley. Eventually, Tamina found her way back into the ring, cleared house. I was a little surprised that they let Tamina go full bad. She went full big bad and really showed her power.
Oh, yeah, she got the best of all of them, even though she was the one without a tag team partner, essentially. I really liked how she went down in this, though.
Oh, yeah.
She ultimately ended up being the first person eliminated after, 5-10 minutes. But the way the girls took them out was each one of the other competitors hit Tamina with a move from the top rope. So you got the moonsault from Lacey Evans, the frog splash from Sasha Banks, the elbow from Bayley, and the split leg move that Naomi does. I can't think of the name right now. But then they all piled on top of Tamina. So it was just a cool sequence, little something different with all the top rope moves.
And it's good storytelling. It's 4 people realizing there is a monster in the ring that she needs to be taken out. It's going to take all 4 of us to get it done, so they all 4 ganged up. So after Tamina got knocked out, it did leave that classic tag team style matchup with Sasha and Bayley going up against Naomi and Lacey. And they went full tag team for a bit, but eventually Lacey and Naomi cleared out Sasha and Bayley, knocked them out of the ring. And one part I did like there is instead of continuing to tag, they kind of agreed as both baby faces say, let's do this, let's square up. So those two squared up for a bit, and I'd say for the rest of the match, or the rest of a few minutes of the match here, it really showcased Naomi and what she can do in the ring.
Yeah, there was a part of me that thought Naomi might win this match just because she is crazy talented. She's still kind of on a comeback after when she was out on injury. She's been pushing back since the Women's Royal Rumble, and it didn't end up going that way, but I really thought that she had a chance to win this.
Well, she's a former champion, and she's gotten accolades before, so it wouldn't have been all that surprising. But unfortunately, so Naomi has Sasha Banks in the submission move. Bayley comes in, breaks it up. Sasha capitalizes and applies the bank statement. Naomi has no way out. She taps, and Naomi is eliminated, and it leaves it down to a double team Sasha Banks and Bayley, the double team on Lacey Evans.
Oh, yeah, you knew at that point that Lacey was in trouble. You really thought that they were just going to double up on her, take her out easy at that point, late in the match. Sasha and Bayley, two powerhouses. But ultimately, it kind of went awry.
Yeah, it didn't go quite that way because after a handful of double teams, they put Lacey in the corner, had her trapped. Bayley goes for a running knee, and in classic situations, Lacey dips out of the way. The knee hits Sasha. Bayley says, oh no, what have I done to my friend? And then Lacey capitalizes, starts beating up Bayley. Eventually, Sasha recovers. She comes back in the ring to confront Bayley. They argue for a bit of time, and Lacey capitalizes once again. She knocks out Bayley, hits Sasha with the women's right, gets the 1-2-3. Sasha's gone.
Sasha was super disappointed, and it left a one-on-one between Lacey and Bayley. There was a moment there before Lacey got Sasha out that it looked like she was going to pin Bayley.
Yeah.
You know, there was an initial fluster, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to get a huge moment here and eliminate the champ and then go one-on-one with Sasha. Ultimately, it didn't go down that way. It ended up one-on-one with Bayley. But Lacey, I know a lot of people don't like her character too much. I'm not super high on the character, even though it works, and it works for her. But she has shown now multiple pay-per-views here on the big stage of Mania that she is every bit as capable in ring as pretty much any other woman on the roster. And I expect she's going to get some gold around her waist at some point in the near future, too.
I would imagine that. I believe it was the Royal Rumble recap where I was hating on her pretty hard.
Yeah.
She had a few missed spots. They put her in the title match, and I flat out said, if you're gonna get put in that title match, you need to act like you deserve to be there. You need to perform. And for me that night, she just didn't. But she turned it around, and 3 months later, here at Mania, she put on quite the show. I was very impressed with when Lacey went one-on-one with Bayley. I was very impressed with how she performed and what she could do in ring.
For sure.
But eventually, Sasha Banks did come back into the ring, hits Lacey with the backstabber. This is key because it was a no DQ matchup, so no disqualification here. She was allowed to come back in, hit Lacey with the backstabber. Bayley gets the pin. Then, key to the story, Sasha picks up the belt and puts it around Bayley's waist.
Yeah, she definitely still kind of subjugated herself to Bayley as the champion, supporting her friend despite the events and how they unfolded. I know that they left this as that moment happened, with still Sasha kind of in Bayley's shadow and some tensions there.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping they don't go super predictable and make them fight right away. We've seen that 1,000 times, so find some new ways to keep this going. I think they work together very well, and right now maybe better than they do apart. So I would like to see their alliance continue, and then maybe towards the end of the year or something like that, a bigger, longer story. You could have the flip on Sasha and Bayley and make them fight.
I would like to say that because you're right. We've seen Sasha turning on Bayley and Bayley turning on Sasha 1,000 times. So it would be nice to see something new. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them fully teaming up and taking a run at Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross for the tag belts.
That's really what I'm kind of hoping for, because all that match showed last night was how good Sasha and Bayley are as a women's tag team, and I would love to see them go after that, even while one of them is champ. I'd have no problem with that.
Why not? We've seen the heavyweight champion also be the tag champion a million times before, so I see no reason why we can't have it, in the women's division.
Yep, exactly.
But we'll move on here to one of the most unique matchups, unique experiences that I've ever seen in my life, in and out of the WWE wrestling at all, and that was the Firefly Funhouse match between John Cena and The Fiend. Chris, this was something out of a Stephen King novel mixed with Vince Russo, mixed with Vince McMahon, and Mr. Rogers. This was just totally unique. Just a wild, wild match that wasn't really a match more than just a video package, long vignette.
It was a psychological experience. And it was kind of interesting because going into this, I had no idea what to expect. Probably the closest thing that we could think of with Bray Wyatt when it comes to a gimmick match like this would be when he was doing the House of Horrors matches a little while back. And so I was kind of thinking we were going to get something similar to that. This ended up being completely off the deep end. And so, but I couldn't look away. And honestly, it was extremely entertaining. It was extremely funny, even though it was creepy and weird as well. But bravo to John Cena for doing something so different and really putting himself and his ego and his legacy out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because this whole thing was pretty much just a teardown of everything he's done over his entire career.
It's true. It's 100% true. So I'm not even sure how to get this started exactly, but John Cena has his entrance. He's in the ring, and then of course, he gets interrupted by the Firefly Funhouse song and music on the board, and the next thing, everything goes black, and John Cena appears in the Firefly Funhouse, and he goes through a series of old moments, and like I said, they were just video recreations of different moments throughout his career and throughout the WWE, WCW wrestling history.
I was going to say, some of the moments were real and some of them were fiction.
Fiction. And it was a blend, and I just highly recommend finding a way to watch it because I'm not sure any sort of description of this match is going to help get across what was going on, because it would slide from clip to clip, moment to moment, with John Cena and Bray Wyatt recreating scenes and promos. And that was one of the best parts to me, was when they recreated the opening promo of John Cena's debut. But instead of Kurt Angle being in the ring, it was Bray Wyatt. And John Cena, 40-some-year-old John Cena, comes out in that original 20-year-old gear. And wow.
Ruthless aggression.
And like there was just some comedic spots with that as well, where he kept swinging to hit Bray Wyatt.
Oh, yeah, that was actually my favorite part of the whole thing, even though it was super overlookable, because Cena just keeps screaming ruthless aggression and swinging at him, and Bray just keeps ducking it. And at one point, I was like, oh, this was a low blow. But at one point, Bray, while that's going on, he just goes, "You can look, but you can't touch," which was a subtle nod to John Cena's failed relationship with Nikki Bella.
Yeah.
Because that was their opening music when they would come out. And I just lost it. Like, my jaw hit the ground. I could not believe what I was watching. And it was amazing I even got to take notes on this because I was just so glued to the TV.
I will say that I didn't. I was so captivated by what I was seeing. I took like some basic notes here at the beginning and some basic notes at the end. So I apologize if I'm a little all over the place. But this was just so captivating.
It was all over the place.
It was all over the place because from there, we went back in time. We got to see John Cena and Bray Wyatt do a little NWO action. Got to see them do a little 80s classic behind the steel cage promo action.
Saturday Night Main Event. And it had all of the highlights and package reels that lead you into those old shows to make it feel unique. It was just so weird and so cool. And it's really funny because I know in part one, I was just kind of crapping on the produced matches and things like that with the Boneyard match and saying how it wasn't my cup of tea and it's just not my sort of match. But then night 2 turns around and they give me the Firefly Funhouse and I was like, this is incredible. Well, this wasn't even a match. It was like an experience.
Right.
It was like the Bray Wyatt presents John Cena experience. Like, I don't know. It was so wild. And Bray is so freaking talented.
Oh, yeah.
One other thing I took away from this was just, I mean, Bray cut like nine different promos during this vignette. He was like 7 different characters, and every one of them was spot on, whether it was an impression or it was him reliving a version of himself from years past. And I just thought the whole thing beginning to end was masterful. When the puppet version of Vince with the devil horns popped up,
yeah,
I laughed out loud. I was just like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah. When he was like, "It's good shit, right?" And he he punched him with his little arms. Yeah. That was good. That was good. Rambling Rabbit showing up here and there. And oh man, I think of in that Saturday Night Main Event, towards the end of that promo, they had John Cena working out with the dumbbells and just getting pumped.
Johnny Large Meat.
And Johnny Large Meat. and then And then they took that quick shot of Sister Abigail, the puppet, and her jaw just drops. I was like, what is going on right now?
It was so good.
So much. Really highly suggest find a way to watch it. It's probably on YouTube. There's no way it's not. It deserves to be everywhere. Gotta check it out.
Yeah, so funny story was when going into this match, like I had put down some initial notes because there was when they announced this match, even though it was The Fiend and not Bray Wyatt, it's still Bray Wyatt. It gave me a couple feels because, we grew up watching wrestling when we were kids, and then, you go to college, you start to act like an adult, or you just party all the time, whatever it may be. But we got away from wrestling, and then we came back after going to a Monday Night Raw. It was our first Raw ever in DC, and it was right before WrestleMania 30. So, do you remember the fact that we saw John Cena jump Bray Wyatt after being dressed like a sheep at the Raw before WrestleMania, where the match happened that Bray has pretty much set up this entire feud for in the storyline? And so I had like this whole thing of like, oh, it's kind of a interesting moment. Like that was our kickoff to coming back to wrestling as adults, and now we're gonna see this culmination match between Cena and Bray, and then we get the Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah.
It went like totally opposite direction.
Totally opposite direction. Yeah, it went in just a very unique way and a unique payout. Throughout all of the sequences that we had, we did get one final sequence with John Cena reappearing in a ring. Bray Wyatt has transitioned into the Fiend. The Fiend is standing behind him. He locks in the Mandible Claw, turns it into the Mandible Claw Sister Abigail, then locks in the Mandible Claw pin. Then you get Firefly Funhouse Bray showing up as ref, gives him the 1, 2, 3, and the Fiend stands tall. Camera pans out. They take a moment. John Cena's body disappears into Dreamland, and then they zoom back in on the Fiend. Cut to black, end of match.
Yeah, I was super pumped. I tweeted questioning whether or not the Fiend just erased John Cena from the timeline. And one of our fans out there, Cameron, he told us on Twitter that he thought that the Firefly Funhouse was, quote, the best thing ever. So I'll say, Cameron, that if in fact John Cena has been removed from the timeline, then I agree with you. It was the best thing ever.
Oh, Chris hating on John Cena.
Well, we can't see him anyways.
You can't see him anyways. I will say, before we totally move off of this, the brief moment where he came back as Thugonomics John was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he had some solid little zingers there.
Yeah, and then Bray, got his feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Because he was just, hating on him and cutting strong promo on him, and he's just like, you're such a bully, John.
Such a bully. Super incredible match, if you could call it a match. Super incredible experience. I think I've already said it 3 times, but I'll say it once again. Find a way to see this match. Find a way to go out there and see what this is. It's about 15 minutes long. It's nothing you've ever seen before, and it's definitely worth checking out. But it does move us into the final matchup of the WrestleMania 36 weekend. It's the big one, folks, the WWE Championship. We have challenger Drew McIntyre, winner of the Royal Rumble, challenging Brock Lesnar, champion. This one has been building since WrestleMania, been a lot of going back and forth. Drew won the Royal Rumble and eliminated Brock Lesnar. Then immediately the next night on Raw, didn't hesitate, named who he was going to challenge. It's been a pretty brutal feud. A lot of Claymore kicks, a lot of F5s, a lot of spears, a lot of backstage just jumps and people being laid out on the top of the entrance ramp. So it was no doubt that this one was going to be fast and furious. Chris, did this one give you what you were looking for?
Yeah, I would say so. I know it's tough with Brock Lesnar matches over the last couple of years because they tend to go a certain way, but I really have felt that over the last, title run or two that he's been trying to do some different things. He's shown that he's okay with doing some different things than just being the dominant beast and 17 German suplexes and what we got for a couple years there. And so we saw a great build on this. The Royal Rumble, I thought I liked a lot more than some folks, with Brock running through everybody to start it, and then Drew McIntyre coming out and getting the surprise elimination to set all of this up. So the match itself still turned out to be pretty much what most Brock Lesnar matches end up being. I was hopeful that being it was Drew McIntyre and really his big true return to Mania and the big stage, that maybe we would get a longer match out of them.
Yeah, I thought it could happen.
But ultimately, it kind of went the way we see with a Lesnar match.
Yeah.
Lesnar comes out aggressive. McIntyre did hit him with a Claymore kick right off the bat, which was kind of interesting because it immediately leveled out the playing field and kind of shook Brock. But Brock still put a beat down on him for a little while.
Yeah, he ultimately took Drew to Suplex City.
Yep.
He took him there, hit a couple F5s. Interesting, after that first F5, Drew kicked out at 1.
Yeah.
Which stunned Brock a little bit. That he did, hit him with an F5 and he kicked out at 1.
Almost never happened.
Yeah, it never happens. So Brock is shocked, drops 2 more F5s on him, gets 2 more kickouts by Drew. Drew finally pulls the reversal and then hits him with 3 Claymores. Gets the pin, win, new WWE champion, Drew McIntyre. He's standing tall as Mania closes out. The official Drew McIntyre era has started. Do you think he's going to do well? Do you think he's going to run with it? Or are we looking at looking at somebody going to fall flat?
No, I think Drew definitely has the ability to be a good champ. I don't know if I necessarily see him being a champ for, 6 months or a year, but I think that he can absolutely hold that title going into SummerSlam. I think there would be a good program to be had between Edge and Drew if they wanted to push Edge into a title match early in his comeback, but we'll have to really see exactly how that works out. The one thing, probably the last other thing I do want to say about this match, the only real issue I had with this match was the fact that it was the exact same match as the Universal title match. Like we saw one guy do 4 or 5 moves and have a pinfall, and then we saw the other guy do 4 or 5 moves and have a pinfall, and that was literally the match on both sides of the coin. And some of that has to do with who's in the match. Goldberg, Lesnar, McIntyre, Strowman, all huge guys. But I really feel like that's a disservice to those belts and to the moment in Mania to have your biggest titles both end in like 8 minutes. But
that's true. I thought that as well. Like it's disservices the belt, discredits the belt and the prestige of it. They're just both over in an instant. But sometimes that's the way it goes. Here's a really unique situation I'm going to pitch to you. And if anyone on the WWE writing team wants to hear this and take it, feel free to do so. We've got Drew McIntyre as the WWE champion on Raw. And we've got Braun Strowman as the Universal champion on SmackDown. This inevitably could build towards a epic Survivor Series with teams led by 2 monsters, 2 massive dudes. And I would love to see both of these guys hold on to these belts until Survivor Series, and we can get a legitimate super clash of 2 gigantic dudes and their teams built around them. Because if you look at the current build-out of each Raw roster and SmackDown roster, if you made a smaller team around Drew McIntyre that included KO and Seth Rollins, AOP, or like another big-time tag team, the Street Profits. Then on the Braun Strowman side, you get Braun Strowman. You could also have New Day out there, the Usos. I'm sure there's some lower-tier fellas that I'm missing. Bobby Lashley and Aleister Black are on Raw. But you could really, the Artist Collective, they're on SmackDown. Any number of those guys. That would be an awesome 5v5 matchup in my mind.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with that. I don't know if I see both of them holding the belts that long. I really hope Strowman gets a legit run that long. I'm more interested in Braun Strowman going the distance as a top-tier champion than I am Drew McIntyre.
Well, that was my follow-up question. Who would you rather see have a longer run?
Yeah, definitely Strowman. But I have no problem. And I think with your idea, your hypothetical, the kind of cool thing there is that Survivor Series matches over the years have become kind of less and less awesome. They're a little less done up. It used to be such a big deal, like who was going to really get selected, and like the whole thing was built to that. I just don't feel like it has the same mystique that it used to. So if you could build a real clash of not just 2 champions leading teams, but 2 big-time, big men champions, it could give it a little bit of an extra draw.
I think it would be fun. It would remind us of the original, like, Team Hogan, Team Warrior, like,
Exactly.
the big time, like, really build them around, like, Team Braun versus Team Drew. I want to see it, but we'll see if it happens. I know it's not, like, crazy fantasy booking. It could end up happening, but we'll see if they can both hold on to it throughout the summer, past SummerSlam, and into Survivor Series. But that does put a wrap on the main show of Night 2 and Night 1. All in all, WrestleMania was pretty awesome. But before we close up shop here, want to talk about some big highlights of the weekend, matches of the weekend. Chris, what do you have as your best match of the weekend if you had to pick one?
Having to pick one is definitely tough. I think there's a few things that this Mania is going to be remembered for. But I really had to just bring it back to what was the best pure wrestling match overall. That's what we're here for to Mania. It is called Wrestlemania. And I had to give it to Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley for the NXT Championship.
Nice. That's a quality pick. We said everything that we needed to say about that match earlier. Like, solid wrestling, good, hard-hitting wrestling, chops, knee strikes. It had it all. Good storytelling. No argument on me there. On my side, I was thinking of that return over 3,000 days, 9 years. The match of the weekend has got to go to my boy Edge and getting that last man standing match. I mean, after 9 years, your first match back, you go for 40-plus minutes when you're already well into your 40s. Kudos to you. Hats off. Well done. That is the match of the weekend. Did you have any memorable moments that you were looking for?
I mean, I do agree. Edge and Orton was probably the best total package of story and match. So I could have easily named that as my match of the weekend. But ultimately, when people look back on Mania 36, it's going to be the Boneyard and the Firefly Funhouse that they remember.
Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agreed.
For sure. WrestleMania 36 will forever be remembered as the Mania when COVID-19 happened, but the WWE rose to the challenge by giving fans multiple WrestleMania moments that will live forever. Night 1 set the bar much higher than most expected, and Night 2 arguably exceeded that. Great wrestling, bold moves with the Boneyard and Firefly Funhouse matches, and the return of Edge, one of the greatest of all time, not only saved a sinking ship, but keeps the WWE cruising into whatever the rest of 2020 has in store. Thank you for listening to GeeK KetchUp. If you enjoyed today's chapter, please remember to subscribe to GeeK KetchUp on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Check out GeeK KetchUp on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GeeK KetchUp for updates on new episodes every 2 weeks. You can find links to all these accounts in the show notes below or at our website, www.geekketchuppodcast.com. Stay saucy, you nerds.